Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the longest running Bigfoot podcast on Blog Talk Radio, the original Squatchdetective Radio, featuring your hosts, Steve Coles and Chris Bennett. 3 decades of Bigfoot research, 2 decades of Bigfoot radio. Here we go.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
And then this thing walks across the road, takes a turn towards us, and then leaps over a guardrail.
All I can remember is flipping the light on, and I see this creature, and I knew in my heart, I knew in my mind, in the whole night, this isn't a man.
And the whole time, the whole thing was shadowing us, right behind us, right on the side of us. You could kind of see the thing moving through the woods.
There are thousands of perfect people whose word would be good on any other subject who describe getting a good look at an enormous hair-covered upright animal, and that is a fact.
And good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to Squatchdetective Radio for today's date, May 13th, 2018. I am your host, your guide, the Squatch Detective Steve Coles, along with my co-host, the man of the hour, Mr. Chris Bennett. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing great, Steve, man, and happy Mother's Day. I really hope everybody had a great Mother's Day, especially you. And I'd just like to remind all our listeners, you know, you're free to send a Happy Mother's Day card to Steve, care of Squatch Detective Radio at this station.
Well, I've been called a mother before, but usually it's associated with something else, but... and of course we have the birds going off. That means it's time for another great round of Squatch Detective Radio. Got a great guest on tonight. We'll bring him on very shortly, Mr. Justin Chernipeski from Mountain Beast Mysteries. He's a Canadian researcher. Should be a wonderful, fun show. And what I love is that this is an international show. And, it's, I know we got some troops watching us from Afghanistan, so guys, stay safe because we get the demographics of where our listens are coming from. So I know we got some troops out there, and if there's any of our troops out in Afghanistan, we want to say hello and Godspeed to you guys. Also want to say hello to our friends from up north in Canada and, of course, over the pond in England and Ireland and down under in Australia. I mean, we've got, obviously our largest audience come from the English-speaking countries, but we've, got people from France, Germany, Greece, Turkey, a couple other countries. So I apologize if I'm leaving your country out. We will acknowledge you at a later time. But, it's really cool. I remember years ago, I used to get correspondence from a tech sergeant who was in the Philippines on station, and he would listen to our show every week. And so it's amazing the reach podcasting can have. And I just love it, and we love bringing you the facts, the real facts of the Bigfoot mystery, and getting away from all the minutia of, what we've seen over the years of, bodies in freezers and people started museums and all that fun stuff. But had a great time. I want to do a shout-out. I was at the Antietam Paranormal Gathering in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia yesterday. I want to thank my hosts, and particularly Rebecca, who made it all happen. We did a 2.5-hour paranormal panel, which consisted of this time. Unfortunately, Stacy couldn't make it, but consisted of, from Haunted Case Files, Jack Kenna, ufologist Tom Conwell, psychic medium, the Saratoga Spiritist, Michelle Wagner, one of our great investigators on the paranormal team, and also a medium, Tim Conwell, and, of course, myself. And it was really great to meet the folks in West Virginia. And they came from all over, from Virginia, Ohio. There was a few people from Maryland. So it was just an awesome event. And it's always great to meet new people, hear some stories. And, that's the reason why I do a lot of these things, is because you end up meeting people and you always get 2 or 3 people that have an encounter or a family encounter that they want to talk about. So it's really cool. Get them to touch the Fordan cast, get them to pose a picture with it, give them some takeaways, and it's a lot of fun. And so keep on rolling.
Awesome. Good deal.
Right. And spring has actually held fast here. So we had one frost warning this week. But that was
I think we have hit summer full blast, man. I mean, it's been in the 90s here in Kentucky, and when it gets in the 90s here, you have to carry a towel from the door to the car so you can towel off. It's the humidity, and I swear we're going to go straight from running the heater at night to running the air conditioning. It's one of those years.
It's a plot from the electric company. That's what it is.
Yeah.
But I got to say, it was we were in 88-degree weather yesterday, and as we're driving home, a front hit, and the temperature dropped from 88 to 54 degrees by the time we got to New Jersey. So, wow. Yep.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I realized that I didn't realize how close we could be to the event because we use GPS, and I remember years ago going to Gettysburg, and it took me 8 hours to get there, and I followed the GPS, and I got in there under 6. So really,
wow.
Yeah. It
Technology, man, that's great.
So anyway, what a guest we have on tonight, Justin Chernipeski from Mountain Beast Mysteries on YouTube. Does a lot of stuff out in the field. Really great to see that, and of course, seeing that the part of Canada. He's in Mountain Time, I believe. So I would think, and I'll have him correct me if I'm wrong. He's in either the Alberta area or maybe Saskatchewan, but he will yell at me when I bring on if I because I'm not sure. But man, and he does a lot of breakdowns on different things. So we're going to hit him with a ton of questions tonight, but let's get him on. And hello, Justin. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am wonderful. So I apologize. Are you from Alberta or are you from Saskatchewan?
Well, I'm living in Alberta right now, but I'm originally from Saskatchewan, actually.
Okay, bingo.
Cool. You're right on both occasions.
Right.
Good.
Yeah.
Wow.
You're good.
Yeah, well, welcome aboard. And so we always start off by letting our guests kind of introduce how they got into the mystery and what inspired you to start Mountain Beast Mysteries, because I really thought it's very refreshing, some of it.
Well, I first got interested in the topic, the Sasquatch topic, back when I was a kid. And I think it's very similar for a lot of other people. My dad would always rent documentaries on the subject, so I was basically forced to watch them. But I found it very, very interesting, and I was always attracted to kind of eerie things and things that scared me, and I guess that was one of them. So it always stuck with me throughout the years, but I didn't start taking it seriously until 2013. And I was looking for an interesting topic to make a documentary film on, and it kind of, the Bigfoot thing combined all my interests into one. Like, I was able to go outside, do a lot of hiking and exploring, and play with cameras all at the same time. And yeah, that's how it all started, I guess.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. Now, do you have a background in photography or a background in movie making or filmmaking? Or it was just something that you landed?
It kind of just came along naturally. Like, my background's actually in adventure tourism and outdoor recreation. And I was a wildland firefighter for a few years as well. But I guess when I was doing some river guiding in Jasper National Park, and that's when I started getting really serious on the photography and videography thing. So that just kind of came naturally, and then I've developed my skills further through the Wild Man documentary. That was just a risk. Basically, it seems like I didn't really know what I was doing, and I didn't plan it out very well. So I was kind of making it up as I went along, but it turned out all right, I guess.
Well, that's what kind of see. As a person who likes watching documentaries, and I do, I'm a documentary nut. I watch documentaries on all sorts of things, from the Darfur crisis to everything. And what I like about some documentaries, like I like a lot of Nick Broomfield stuff, who did the stuff on Eileen Wuornos. And I like those documentaries that kind of unfold as they go along, because to me, I like seeing the journey, not necessarily something that's a polished, finished product. I enjoy those too, but the real cool ones that really get my attention are the ones that, hey, we're going to do this, and where it leads us, who knows? And I really appreciate that. So don't think for 1 second, because things are not planned out or you don't know how things are going to exactly turn out, that there's not an audience for that. Because obviously, with the success of your YouTube page, there is, But
yeah, it's basically, I never know what I'm going to run into and how it's going to turn out. So it's a big gamble sometimes, and a lot of times I don't really find too much evidence, but you never know. It could happen at any time. So.
And Justin, that is what makes your work important. And I stress to the audience all the time that a person who goes out and finds evidence every single time they're out, that kind of leads to a lot of suspicions, because I know, I've been doing this since 99, actually in the field since 99. I did a year of research prior, but that you don't go out every time and get Bigfoot evidence. That's impossible. And there are certain YouTube users that seem to find Bigfoot evidence every single minute they go out, and sometimes you'll see 5 videos in a week with 5 bits of evidence, and I'm going, But I like some of your analysis and stuff too, and you show you show critical thinking and in certain things, and what do you think was, I've seen some of your stuff on the Patterson Gimlin. What do you think is the most authentic footage that you've seen aside from the Patterson Gimlin?
Ooh, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I like the footage from Mission BC. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Vaguely. Is that the one off the boat, or is that the one?
No, it's taken. It looks to be taken from like an elevated position, and it's looking down into this valley, and there's a creature kind of walking along. It looks like it's almost picking leaves or something, and then it steps down into this hole. And I don't know if you're aware, Thinker Thunker on his channel, he did an analysis of it, and it's a really bizarre the way the creature moves, and there also appears to be a younger one kind of hiding behind a log that pokes his head up as well. Okay. And I don't know. I like the pieces of video. I like the pieces of video that are from really far away with like long lenses, because it's a lot harder to coordinate a hoax. You know what I mean? If it's from really far away.
Yep. Yeah. I just called it up real quick on my computer, and I am familiar with that one. And that one does make me scratch my head a little bit, which is good. It's nothing. I know there was one that was kind of in this off in the distance, and the thing didn't. I saw you talking about it. Didn't really have a natural walk, and its stride wasn't as big. But that wasn't the one I was thinking of. So that's why I checked it real quick. And that's a really cool one. If anybody just wants to check that one out at some point, just Google Mission BC Bigfoot footage. And it is kind of an interesting one, so really cool. I have a question from Bruce over in the chat room. What do you think of the Freeman footage? I kind of know because I saw some of your film. I saw, I was doing little snippets.
Spoilers.
I went over that in a video before, and I didn't really speak on how apparently Freeman was researching that area for a while.
Yep.
But just knowing that, his reaction to me doesn't... I just always thought it wasn't very natural, but I could be wrong. I didn't know the guy. And it almost seems too good to be true, and how close it is, and it doesn't really care that he's there, you know. I always feel like if a creature is so elusive that it wouldn't just be wandering around, not caring that there's people videotaping them.
Right.
It seems kind of strange to me.
Right, but, you know, to me, the Freeman footage, and I don't talk much about what I think about the Freeman footage, I sure like to believe it's real. I see some things in there that ring true. You know, it's kind of casual glance and it kind of just walks away. If you think of all the tons of reports that we get, that's kind of the reaction it takes. Is kind of just looks at the person for a second and moves on without any, because it's an apex predator. So I don't know. You know, it's like one of those. I know he had kind of a checkered past with something. But you know, to me, I'm on the fence about that one too. But I'd sure like to really believe that was an authentic one. I know what I want to believe, but what it really is, it's just, you know, I've always stood by my statement that a film is only as good as the story behind it. And if there's no story behind the film, which we see so many times on places like YouTube, I noticed you did some stuff on Robert Dodson. Now I know I debunked one of his pictures of it hiding in the woods because of it was actually green and whatnot. And of course, what happens is then I get people see her, they're cloaking. And I'm like, no, but no, but it just was a you know, it was one of his pictures he took that he didn't see nothing, didn't hear nothing, and there it is. But Dodson does have some very interesting stuff on there. I believe one of the tree shaking video was one of the Dodson ones. But I don't know. What's your thoughts?
Well, the one I looked into mostly was the being he was filming. It was just basically a set of glowing eyes, and it kept on kind of popping up and down behind some bushes. And it eventually began throwing small rocks at him. And at one point in the video, he turns around, and it's almost right up to him, and he takes off in the opposite direction. I just thought the video was creepy, real or not. Like, it creeped me out, so I thought it was very interesting. And it's obviously hard to tell what exactly it is, right? Because all you see is the glowing eyes.
Yep. Right.
But other people have been telling me that a lot of his stuff seems legit, and he has a lot of other videos. I haven't had too much time to go very deep on his content, but it seems to be very strange.
Yeah. To me, you know, and despite actually looking at one of his pictures, I hope he doesn't hold any animosity towards me. Sometimes I'm just brutally honest with things, and I feel that's what the field deserves sometimes. Is, you know, listen, you're putting this thing out there. It's not. You know, I don't consider this evidence. You know, it's too vague, and you know, you do kind of. I have a ton of vague stuff, but what I do is I don't necessarily pass it off on the websites. I actually talk more about it in some of my lectures, and you know, to me, you know, like the rock throwing incident with the glowing eyes, that has some background to it. Whereas the picture in the woods did not have any background other than I'm just taking pictures and there it was. Unless I see something really dark and defined, you know, that's how I kind of look at things. I know you have an eye for a lot of critical thinking and stuff. So we talked about Freeman, we talked about Dodson. Anybody you want to talk about? You think is doing good work, bad work?
I can start with bad work.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know. I don't really like knocking on anyone or ripping anyone apart because the Bigfoot community, as it's called, is already just a big battleground, it seems. But I always find
that if you do it with tact, it works out fairly well. Yeah,
I'm just gonna say any of Dr. Matt Johnson's stuff. I am not buying any of that.
Yeah. I have
That's
some trepidations. Yeah, I have some trepidations on a lot of that stuff myself. Do I get along with Dr. Johnson? He doesn't attack me. He actually kind of promotes my debunking of stuff. But the path that he has gone down, I can't necessarily subscribe to. Makes me scratch my head, and others feel that there may be some more dubious things behind it. Not being from that coast, I really don't get onto it, but I did do a blog about some of the cloaking and stuff like that I think ruffled a few feathers, but that's fine. I know you had a lot to say about Todd Standing, and I'm curious your take on Todd, which is very interesting. And Todd knows I'm no big fan of his, but he doesn't necessarily come out and attack me unless he's using a sock puppet, I think. But
well, I think we're all allowed. We're all allowed our opinion. If somebody puts out some evidence, we can discuss it, and if we think it's a bunch of hooey, why, okay, well, we can voice that. If we think it looks pretty good, or or there's maybe something to it, well, we can discuss that. It doesn't mean we're right or wrong. Everybody's got their own opinion.
No, when I first saw Todd's videos, the classic ones of the face looking kind of in his direction.
Yep.
I was very excited, of course. I'm sure a lot of people were, but after looking into it and talking to a bunch of other people who were kind of involved with him, I personally don't believe any of it. There's some things I can't really talk about because it'd be really mean, but
yeah, personal stuff we can keep out. Yeah.
Right.
I'm concerned about whatever his agenda is, if it's actually pushing the research or if it's more of a personal benefit, like a monetary thing, which I don't know. It's weird because back, I think it was in 2006, he was producing a movie called Sylvanik, and Sylvanik is apparently the name of the area where he was bringing these creatures in.
Right.
And this movie was actually being set up as a feature film, like a dramatic film. And if you go on the Internet Movie Database, there's a list of actors there. So this whole thing started off as a movie. And he has a mini documentary that he's had out for a while, and there's some clips. There's a clip in there of a younger First Nations man speaking, and I'm really confident that that's one of the actors. It looks like he's acting anyways in the video, but I don't know. If it starts off like that, I have troubles believing anything nowadays, and also the creatures just don't look real to me in the videos. They don't. I want to see more movement. I want to see more than just the head. Yes. And I want to see what happened before. I want to see what happened after. I don't want to see stuff where the camera conveniently dies.
Yep. Yeah,
you'd think if you're going out to do this stuff, you'd be prepared for that sort of thing.
Exactly, and the funny thing is and like I said, I don't know if you've read any of my material on Todd. Yes, you're absolutely right. It started actually. I forgot about the whole Sylvanik Internet Movie Database thing, and maybe that's something for me to revisit at some time. So thank you for reminding me of that. But I do know that there was a casting call in an Edmonton newspaper. The phone number came back to Todd Standing. And at the same time, the very first video he ever came out with was like a Blair Witch type video where it was a first person shooting. Now, here's the interesting thing. When all this started up, the popular movie was Blair Witch. So was he trying to create a Blair Witch type of movie using this Sylvanik, kind of like Blair Witch did, because they had the Burkittsville Witch or whatever, and they created their own faux website about it. And if you look at the original Sylvanik, the first thing is the missing people on there. And truthfully, the drawings of the people look like it was done by a second grader. Because the heads were all odd shaped. I'm like, what the heck? And how he had to climb through this little opening in the mountain range to get into this valley. and it's called Sylvanic. And, it's a Native American term, yet none of the Native Americans in Canada know anything. In fact, Sylvanic, I believe, is a Latin term, which obviously didn't come from the Native Americans. And the very curious assimilation is Todd Standing's mother is named Sylvia. So is that maybe a coincidence? But and like I said, the first video was this girl walking around saying some very canned language. I have it somewhere on some of my media of the very first Sylvanic film that ever came out, and of course it was on a cassette, so the grade was very bad. And they find tracks, and you hear this girl, "What do we have here?" And she starts walking, and all of a sudden you see this tree shaking and all the snow coming off, and you hear this growl, and boom, film cuts out. To me, it looked completely staged.
Well,
so
in that mini documentary, do you remember hearing he mentioned something about a Dan Hamilton case, and I think that was apparently the case of the kids who went missing.
Yes,
and he says it out in the open on the documentary, but when you go in and try and research that, like it doesn't even exist. There's no Dan Hamilton.
Right. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I think what happened was he switched gears, and a lot of people didn't know he was running a production company, and the production company, of course, was Outstanding Productions, but he used a pseudonym as Todd Rockwell, which really started making me scratch my head even more. And then, you go through the years and you hear these rumors that, it's Todd Standing's sister. What I found out actually is that who a lot of people thought Todd Standing's sister was actually his wife. Louise Standing is his wife, not his sister. And she had part of that production company as well. And to be fair, people said, about the pictures and all that Todd Standing's, sister or AKA wife is a makeup artist. She's a cosmetician. So a very big difference between what, a special effects artist versus a makeup person does. So, to be fair, that was kind of, and that's the big thing about trying to pick through the minutia. That's why I never really brought that particular, makeup thing out, because you really don't know. And, it's all about trying to be consistent and constant. And, I know, I have kind of a feeling that part of Todd's thing, and I want to get your opinion on it, is, Canada is a separate country, and you have Canadian heroes. The Canadian wrestling hero was Bret Hart, of course. And well deservedly. I always enjoyed, I have to admit, I was a wrestling fan for many years. I watch it very, very infrequently now, but the golden days I used to watch it quite often. And I know Rene Dahinden was the Bigfoot hero of Canada, even though he was kind of transplanted from, I think, Switzerland, and he became really a big hero. He was doing commercials for the beer commercials, and they had this like trailer rocking in the background as he's talking about the beer. So I almost wonder if Todd is trying to be the Canadian Bigfoot hero. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. You can kind of the way he films himself running through the woods, it's almost like he's just kind of hyping himself up, filming himself running through the mountains, through the rivers in a ghillie suit, to really cool action music, and then saying he's a skilled, he's got the skills of a sniper, basically. It's very, I don't know. I think he's hyping himself up, making himself look like some sort of hero, as you would say, but that's just my opinion. I don't know. It probably doesn't matter too much, but
No, it waits, because I know you talked about, why you think Les Stroud picked him, and I really think, and I didn't get into exactly why, because I wanted to ask you rather than have a pre-notion of what you already said, because I have no idea what you said about, why Les Stroud picked Todd Standing. I personally think that Les Stroud was looking for a Canadian Bigfoot researcher, because Les Stroud is a Canadian, and I think that Standing was a high-profile guy, although his stuff was kind of, shaky. So, what say you?
Yeah, I think probably, like, my opinions on that matter, my opinions change every now and then, but I think mostly because it was so controversial. Like, when Les Stroud chose him, Todd's stuff was really kind of taking off. And I know it was the most controversial piece of video at the time, the footage of the faces, and I think that's probably why he chose it. Plus, he's in the right area.
Yep.
The North Egg area has always been known.
Yeah. Yep. Now, we have another question in the chat room, too. And, Chris, I'll let you fire off after this question. And this is simple. Have you ever collaborated with any other Canadian researchers like Tom Steinberger or John Kirk?
Nope, neither of them. I just actually became a member of the Alberta Sasquatch organization. So this summer we're really going to kick things off and have some joint efforts. So there's 3 of us in that organization, and one of them's in the first Expedition Sasquatch film that I made. His name's Rob McNeil, and he's the owner of the organization.
Nice.
So it's kind of going to be a local thing this summer here in Alberta.
Very
and
cool.
I'm hoping we turn up some good evidence.
Yeah, and I know Tom and John both come from British Columbia rather than Alberta, so they're a little bit of ways. If anybody thinks traveling, like across Texas, it's like crossing a Canadian province. They're huge. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've ever looked at some. Tom Steinberg does a lot of excellent. If you ever get a chance to watch a Tom Steinberg interview, they're very fascinating stuff and very informative. So, because he's done research on Jacko and the Ruby Ridge incident and stuff like that. He's done follow-up work to what John Green had done, and of course the actual intro to the show has an homage to a lot of people that, like, actually 3 out of 4 people you hear in that. I have the phone clip, but the 3 people that are talking, the first one, the second one, or only one is living out of those last 3 interviews. So when you hear one of the police officers from Whitehall talking about it jumping over the guardrail, he passed on a few years. John, who talks about the thing shadowing him, that he passed away a few years ago, and at a very young age, unfortunately. And of course, the ending was John Green, who is one of my heroes in this thing. Not saying John was always right, but he was more right than he was wrong. So.
Yeah.
That's been a lot, too.
Yep. So,
well, I got some questions for Justin. I'd like to jump in here for a minute. But now, Justin, I just recently found your Mountain Beast Mysteries channel on YouTube. I'm not a big YouTuber, but I've been known to go over there and watch a few Bigfoot videos and stuff. And I noticed you had one on there entitled 1962. Well, actually, I think it's a 3-part series. 1962 Bigfoot body recovered. And I was wondering if you could give us a little background on that. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit for the listeners.
I knew this
what
one was
the
coming.
Story?
Well, as it's read, apparently back in the 60s after the Columbus Day storm, there was a body recovered by a logging crew, I believe it was. And it was taken away and sent to the Smithsonian, I believe. Actually, I think it was it sent to Colorado? First, I can't remember all the facts off the top of my head. I have it all written down here. But But there was apparently a guy named Dr. Miller who was brought in to research this body.
Right.
And I guess before this happened, there was also a few bodies recovered in Texas that he was also involved with. But it's supposed to be, I don't know, it's a very interesting story. Right. And there's a lot of different characters involved, you know, that you hear about from the 60s. And then, you know, the big mystery is how the story kind of came to be. There's not a lot of information provided, and there's people working now to kind of figure out, you know, if it's a hoax or,
right.
You know, where's the body? Is there photographs of the body? Who is Dr. Miller? I don't know.
Right.
It's a big mystery.
Yeah, according, you know, I realize you're just doing like an investigation on it, trying to figure it out a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm wondering. Yeah, on the. What's your overall opinion on that thing? Do you think it could be an urban legend, or there might be something to it?
It's funny. Like, when I first started looking at it, I was very intrigued by it and excited.
Yeah.
But the more I read over the information, like I read it over and over and over again, and you know, people kept on sending me more and more documents, and it just.
Right.
I've kind of found some inconsistencies and some things that lead me to believe that it might have been written by one person.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole story on how I got involved in it is kind of funny as well. Like, I made that video, the 1962 corpse,
right,
or whatever. I can't remember exactly what I titled it, but after I made that video, it kind of took off. It got quite a bit of views. There were individuals that started sending me their research that they were able to dig up and different documents. And there's a small group of people that have dedicated a lot of time into researching this case. But the problem with that is none of them will tell me who they are, right? So, you know, it's a very weird thing. I was looking into it. I was very interested in it, but I felt like I was kind of being pushed to present information for people who won't even tell me who they are, which I wasn't really a big fan of.
Right. So.
Well, you know, like, why do you guys get to hide your identity and I'm the face of it on the internet telling everybody about this stuff? Like, very, very strange. So I've kind of dropped it a bit. I haven't made a video on the subject in a while just because I didn't really like everybody else being in the shadows.
Yeah. Now let me ask you
a question.
I
think, you know, go ahead.
Have you checked the IP addresses of those particular emails, or unless they're using Gmail, which hides the IP addresses?
No, I have not.
I would, because, you know, you and I have talked briefly on this, and I know where the source of the story is coming from, and as well you do. I'm not afraid to say the name because she is on my Hall of Shame, and the source of a lot of this is Linda Newton Perry of Bigfoot Ballyhoo, and what I have discovered with Miss Perry is she will use sock accounts to send people emails. When I was doing the debunking of her ESP team, I was getting messages from anonymous people saying, "I know Bill Emery." Oh, really? Well, I know Bill Emery too. His real name is Vince Chastain, and he lives in Fort Worth, Texas, because those are the pictures you're using. And Vince and the other guy was it escapes me, but another guy, the real name of the guy was Gene Tilley, and that was another guy on the ESP team. We weren't really able to find the third guy, but her whole site is dedicated to this guy by the name of Dale Saxton, and what we've discovered is a photo-based picture, which actually has the same database, the same picture of Jerry Lustin, the Bigfoot body story guy, the guy who found the body. Jerry Lustin is actually a guy by the name of Buzzy Franklin. And in that same thumbnail database is a picture of a salmon charter fisherman, and you even see the sign in the background that says Salmon Charters. And it's, my God, it's Dale Saxton. She's just reversed it and colorized it a little bit to hide the salmon sign. So
killing me, Steve.
To me, that whole thing sunk that entire story. And I did find an H.A. Miller, and she did pull that off of another website. But the problem with that was H.A. Miller was actually the forester. Was not an MD also. The MD actually has papers published in 1914, and he actually graduated out of the University of Pittsburgh. So, to me, some of those inconsistencies with the whole thing that obviously should kill it is the picture of the supposed Jerry Lustin, which actually was a news clipping of Buzzy Franklin, who actually somebody by name, her name is Barb Shoup, sent me an email, said, I know Buzzy, that's his picture. So she actually threw her name behind it and everything. So it was like, yeah. And,
once one thing's debunked like that, then it ruins everything else.
Exactly. Once you find that big, and this wasn't like a little hole. I mean, you can find little holes sometimes, and they can be attributed to, I always say that time and spatial relationships can vary over the years. It was 6 foot, 8 foot. That the mind does that. But when you have a big gaping hole, like, well, this is the real picture where this came from, and this is something we consistently see from Linda Newton Perry, is using pictures she finds to make these great stories. And it's kind of interesting, as you told me about the anonymous emails that people won't name themselves.
Right. That's
her tact on the blog. You hear a lot of these one-name persons or anonymous said, oh, I know Bill Emery, or, Marcia, the attorney Marcia. Well, what's her last name? She's an attorney? You're just saying she's an attorney. And it's not the first time she's tried playing with a document. She also tried to say that Oregon was suspending people's driver's license who report a Bigfoot sighting, which was completely debunked by it. And that's the whole thing. If you just look at the root of that whole Miller doc, the body story, that all the only original references go to Linda Newton Perry and the Bigfoot Valley of the blog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the
I think
thing.
the biggest.
I don't mind. I'm sorry. I was just going to say real quick. I don't mind people writing fiction stories about Bigfoot. I mean, that's okay. There's a market for that. I mean, people want to read fiction about Bigfoot too. That's fine. But you can't go trying to pass off fiction as this really happened.
Yep.
That's something else. That's hoaxing. We don't need that. There's enough of that out there already.
Yep.
Well, one of the big things that turned me off was there was a alleged pamphlet that was handed out to forestry workers in case it was basically explaining what they should do in case they ran into one of these creatures. And you can look up the actual pamphlet online. It's like a forestry handbook that goes over lots of things, from like dealing with regular wildlife to how you should like operate your vehicle and things like that. But the pamphlet section that's written up on the Bigfoot Ballyhoo website it has elements that are taken directly from this real handbook, and they're mixed in with made up Bigfoot stuff, right? There's full sentences that are taken from the real pamphlet, and mixed in with that is other things that are clearly not in the real pamphlet. So whole document, it looks to me as if it's fabricated.
Okay. And you know something, Justin? That's something I didn't know, because I stopped at the Lustin thing. That was it for me, but that is awesome too. Good find. And that's that's what we need. We need people to really dig into this. And hey, you know what? I understand completely, and I'm sure some people didn't, because I know the YouTube community is just the Bigfoot community on crack sometimes, and you probably took a lot of guff for that too. And you know, people automatically assuming, oh, what are you doing promoting that stuff? And you know, obviously, when I saw it, I came at with kind of a different approach. And I was, hey, listen, I just want to let you know, this is what I know about this. You know, here's the reference material. Run with it. And that's you know, that's how people should really operate. But you have the people out there that just want to bash and the trolls and the haters. And but you have maintained yourself with dignity, sir.
Well, thank you. No, I initially just wanted to make one video on the subject, right? Like the first 1962 corpse video. I think it's just a 5-minute long video sharing that story that I kind of stumbled upon. I didn't want it to be anything more, really. Yep. And then that's when I started getting those strange messages saying, "Oh, I should go in more depth and do it accurately." And
I was going to say, I bet she subscribes. I was going to say, I bet you she's one of your subscribers.
Oh yeah, she is.
So when yep, there you go. Yep. Yep.
But I don't like ripping on anyone or calling people out.
No.
And I have nothing against Linda. She seems like a nice lady, but
yeah.
The whole fabricating evidence thing, I don't know. There's probably more benefits in just writing another novel, you know, than making up a story. But I know I'm not the only one who's been brought in.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Like there's other people that kind of got caught up in the case.
Yep. And I understand that too, not trying to ruffle feathers. Or try to rip on people. I know a lot of great, respected researchers. You know, even Dr. Meldrum rarely says things or outs people for stuff. He'll just very quietly and privately talk about it and move on from it. And you know, that's what you do. And hey, that's okay. You know, so you got to have, sometimes you got to have a pit bull like me out there sometimes that's not afraid to point the finger, and that's the brunt I take. And I'll tell you, that has not come without some cost.
Right.
You know, I had a case with a gentleman last year where he had actually taken expedition money, and his expedition got shot down. And during one of his expeditions, he was trying to pass off some audio that he basically taped off of a YouTube. He taped it off of YouTube of a gorilla, and we had the exact matching. And he was passing around his expeditions. One of the people got a hold of that, and then his expedition got shut down because they weren't properly permitted. So he was really nasty to me. My involvement was trying to get these people's money back, and he refused to accept any wrongdoing, but although the PayPal receipt was in his name. And of course, 2 weeks after I blogged about it, I'm deluged with prank phone calls. So somebody had gotten my phone number and started calling me. And just a few weeks ago, even like here we are a year later, I get a piece of hate mail. I remember we talked about that, I think, last week, Chris.
Yeah.
You know, another guy that's a very frequent YouTuber by the name of the Squatch Master, who years ago was outed by a gentleman from Ohio, from Tim Stover. And I hear you chuckling, Justin. You're probably very familiar with his stuff. And he's now the Squatch Dog or something like that. He uses another name. But how should I say it? I posted something about something, I forget what it was, and all of a sudden here's his Facebook account saying, you know, you should be ashamed of yourself, you're the real hoax, Bigfoot isn't real. And then I reposted, well, really, if you're saying this, then why are you saying this on Twitter? And like 2 days earlier, he tweeted that he's coming out with a new Bigfoot video, and he's tracking Bigfoot, and you know, so he's notorious for trying to change stories and all that. And I knew it was the real him. I knew it was the real him because he's got a couple of Facebook accounts, because he actually used a reason for that audio that I had debunked of his, because he was another one that came out with an audio. And being in the paranormal, I'm also a paranormal investigator, and I'm listening to the thing, and somebody had suggested that it was backwards English, and I was like, yeah, it does sound like that. So I reversed it, and what it came out was a radio conversation between a man and a woman on a radio. The guy hit his head, "Are you okay?" And what he did was he just took that strip and reversed it. And and then he tried to say, "Well, you see, that's what I'm trying to say. There's spirits in Salt Fork and all this other stuff." And I was like, "Really? Well, why would you put that as a Sasquatch audio? Because here's the screen capture of your YouTube page with that on there that says it was a Sasquatch audio. Now you're changing your story." So people like that, they just, it does come with a cost. And, there's a guy from California that threatened to sue me, and I told him very much, go ahead, and you'll be my first witness I call. And that ended real quick. So, yeah, it does come with a cost, and I appreciate you not wanting to get into that. You see me, I do it all. I try to get into everything. But, there are some people that just want to strictly look at the research, and that's cool with me. So what do you have going forward in plans? I know you talked about joining the Alberta group. Do you plan on doing more expedition movies and films?
Yeah, I like to film everything whenever I go out. So there's going to be plenty of content coming out throughout the summer. And now that the weather's warming up, there's going to be a lot more, I guess, longer documentary style videos, not just the short videos where I'm kind of going over old footage. I like doing that because I like to kind of show, I guess what I'm trying to do is make the Bigfoot thing more mainstream for everyone, and for the younger, cooler kids these days, Yeah. They're more into these hip YouTube videos, so I just want to make good quality content for them, and then have stuff that appeals to the more veteran researchers as well. But I don't like to get too in-depth on, like, the critique. There's already a lot of people who do the in-depth analysis of footage, and I just kind of like to keep it at my opinion and what I think of the footage. I don't know. There's and that's what do a better job of analyzing it than me, like Thinker Thunker and Bigfoot
know what I like
people like that.
You know what I like about yours is, you're just putting it out there as your opinion. You're not saying, hey, factually, this is what happened and stuff like that. So I can appreciate that, because you're just a guy kind of just, hey, this is what I think. I could be wrong, but this is what it is. And I've caught that cadence on your videos, and I appreciate that. I am never one to, if somebody says, in my opinion, I think a Bigfoot comes out of a portal. Okay, fine. Why do that everybody's entitled to their opinion. Whether it comes out of UFO, a portal, cloaks, whatever, they're entitled to their opinion. But it's when I see stuff put out as evidence to the mainstream public, that's what kind of riles me up a little bit, and going, you don't. You kind of put it out there as your opinion and what you think, and that's totally fair. If you thought Bigfoot cloaked, that's totally fair too, and this is the reason why I think. Now, we could sit here and have a debate about that, and that's fine too. But I think, and I'm sure you'll agree with me because you've mentioned it, that there, especially with social media, there tends to be a lack sometimes of civility. And I've always tried to, sometimes I will admit, and it's very rare, I will never really get uncivil with somebody on their page or another person's page. But if somebody comes at me on my page, I will fire back just as good as anybody else. But I try to avoid name calling, because I feel when you name call, you're proving the other side's point. And that is the big thing that I notice is that, of course, there's Squatch Dog, Squatch Master, Jeff Patterson calling me names. Well, that just proves my point, because you've got nothing better to do than name call rather than give me some fact. Give me some fact. And when you go out there, you always, in your videos, you always, pose, that, well, this could be this, I hear this. Have you ever had a Bigfoot sighting?
I've never had an actual sighting, no.
But
I found what I think could be tracks out in the Nordic area, and those are in my first documentary. You can see those in the second half of that. And I can't really explain those. And that's what kind of kept me going this whole time. There's some days where I think, man, like, am I, like, wasting my time doing this? But then I think back to that, and I'm like, that was in the middle of nowhere. What could have left those tracks? It doesn't make any sense.
Right. Well, exactly, and I like that frame of thought. It's always good to have that little bit of skepticism in there with you, saying, am I just wasting my time? Because even doing this for 20 years, sometimes I go out there and, am I just killing time today or what? But I've had my own sightings, so I know they're out there, and I think it's just a matter of time before you actually see something, and that is exciting to me, because I love when we have I mean, you've been around for about, 5 years now doing it seriously.
Yep.
I'd love to talk to you in 10 years from now and get your take between now and then. And it may change. It may change drastically.
Yeah,
So,
I have big hopes for this summer. And I don't know, it's weird. Like, I get comments on the channel, and if I'm too skeptical about things, I get ripped on. Like, I had a comment the other day that somebody was saying I was too skeptical, and he's not going to watch any more of my stuff because I'm too skeptical. And there was another person that didn't like that I didn't believe the Marble Mountain footage was real. So I apparently lost all my credibility because I was skeptical of that video. But you can't just go out believing that every little photograph or piece of footage is real, or you're playing a dangerous game.
Well, you are, yeah. Because when eventually it gets flushed out that it's not real, it's a risk to say, hey, I believe in something. And it's also a risk, too, to say I don't believe in something. And truthfully, Justin, my advice, being in this as long, if somebody is unfollowing you because you're being too skeptical, then you're doing the right things, because you don't want to have people that follow you that believe in everything, because they don't make credible witnesses, they don't make credible researchers, they don't make credible comments. So that's the important thing to kind of foster, because this person could have been singing your songs 3 months ago, but now because you're critical on something, they goodbye. I mean, social media at its worst.
Like, I'm not a scientist, but from what I know about scientific methods is that you do everything you possibly can to prove something wrong, and you try and try and try, and when you realize that you can't, then you might be onto something.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So, I just want to shoot out to our fans real quick too, and to Justin, that probably some point tomorrow we do have a Squatchdetective Radio YouTube page. I actually converted my old personal page into the radio show page, so it's youtube.com/Steve Coles, and this show will be uploaded there too, so you can share it and do whatever you want with it. Get it out there to folks, and I think this is really, really a cool thing, having somebody that I think fairly is a good representative for YouTube research on the show, and because there are some that are wow, but you keep it real, and that's what I appreciate. So let's get into more of the minutia about a Sasquatch. What do you have any idea where, do you feel it may be a hominin or a pongid, or not sure?
I'm not sure. I've been looking into a lot of, like, kind of early human ancestry and things like that. I find that kind of stuff really interesting, like learning about early hominids and if I'm kind of more towards it being a descendant of something like Gigantopithecus, along that line of it being an actual flesh and blood creature.
Yep.
But obviously this is just speculation. I can't say for sure.
Right.
I like to think it's really close to human just based on eyewitness accounts. You know, people a lot of times say that it was basically a person but covered in hair. So I don't know. The weird, like when I think of Gigantopithecus, I think of a creature that is too big and has so much mass that it probably wouldn't have walked on two legs.
Yep.
You know, it seems to me to be more of a creature that would have mostly been a quadruped. So I don't know if between when that creature exists and now maybe it could have developed the ability to walk on two legs, but like I don't know, it's hard to say. I can't give you a definitive answer on that. Yeah.
But no, kind of like no. It's just an opinion question, and yeah. I mean, just to make you feel more comfortable, well, we know it's a primate because primates is the order, but what genus it is, who knows? Where it falls
exactly.
on the evolutionary tract. Could it be hominid? Could it be pongid? From what I've seen, it looks more pongid to me. However, it could be a separate offshoot that's in between pongid and hominid. So who knows? But it's really cool to speculate, and it's okay to speculate.
Yeah, when we were at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, a good friend of ours, Ace Del Rio, he brought a full-size reproduction Gigantopithecus skull. And I took that thing, and man, I tell you what, the shape was right on. For me, I was like, wow, hey, this is it. Now, I don't know. There are different head shapes reported, but man, that Gigano skull was on the money, I thought.
Yeah, there is definitely, something to it. Who knows? Until we actually have some DNA that's from them, or unfortunately a body, because I'm a no-kill proponent. But we won't know. So Justin, what was your most interesting Sasquatch encounter story that you've taken or heard of? That you personally got. Well, that you personally got reported to you, or you spoke to somebody about.
Oh, well, my whole interview with Ken Walker that I did on my second Expedition Sasquatch video, he's got some stories. Like, a lot of people in the comment section on that video rip him apart because it sounds so outrageous, some of it. But what he says on camera is just a tiny fraction of what he's experienced. Like, I talked to him for hours that day before we even started rolling the camera, which I thought was insane. But like he would tell me stories of him. He'd be out in the woods near Nordegg, like near the classic habituation site that you always hear about. And I've heard other researchers mention this as well, but sometimes you'll be walking along and then you'll get hit with an extreme terror almost, like out of nowhere. And, you just feel like you're being followed, being watched, but you almost can't even move. Almost like having a nightmare, but when you're fully awake. And he believes that they can kind of emit this energy, I guess, and put it inside of you. And I've had other researchers say the same thing. Have you heard of Sonia Zohar?
I have not.
I haven't, no.
She used to do lots of stuff with John Bindernagel. I can't remember what state she's from, but she had the exact same thing happen out near Nordegg as well. And I believe she actually went to the hospital after too, is what she said. But just an extreme amount of fear. You almost get it's almost like a PTSD type thing that you get after.
Yep. Oh, very much so. You know, a lot of people may say it sounds crazy, but Chris and I have talked a lot about infrasound. And to me, a lot of that sounds like it could be infrasound, not so much emitting an electrical impulse, but it sounds like to me infrasound. And for folks who haven't checked my last blog out, I talk a little bit about infrasound being responsible for some of our more weirder cases, like people seeing them disappear in thin air, and hearing them talk to them, and that could all be after effects of infrasound. But cool. Anything else from the Walker interview that may be of interest? And
he was so certain of locations. I'm not going to give exact locations right now on the air, but you'll probably see some stuff this summer in future videos. But he would say do you want to find them this summer? You go to this specific mountain. And this is where they hide in the winter, and, there's supposed to be a cave full of bones. That was the most interesting thing I heard, was he said there was a cave full of bones on this specific mountain. And I've actually been really, really close to this mountain, but this summer I'm going to go out there and see what I can find. There was a story he told me from Alberta of a young hunter who was walking along a river, and he had his rifle with him, and he ended up running into one of these creatures, a large male. And I guess the creature started running at him like it was going to take him. And so the kid fired a few shots at it, and finally it turned and ran off. But he actually was talking to this young man in his taxidermy shop. And when, because he built the Patty replica there in his shop. When the kid saw that, he started having a meltdown, basically, because it was bringing back those emotions. But there are a lot of crazy stories in Alberta that you don't really hear about that are kind of circulating amongst the hunting and trapping community. Right. These guys are out there all the time, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that people seeing one coming at them, to me, is not that unusual, especially if you're smack dab in the middle of their, territory. How many times have we heard bluff charges with Diane Fossey? And to some extent, chimps will do that to you too. But it's just a way to scare you, and it's either flight or fight. And Fossey learned just to stay put, and they ran right past. But for most of us, it's flight or fight. You're going to run, or you're going to fire off some shots. And he fired off some shots. So none of that sounds wild to me. It sounds very, very normal for primate behavior. So that is really cool. Really cool.
I don't want to have that same experience.
No, I don't think any. No. But it's actually not the first time I've heard of that. Many years ago, maybe 2003, I actually had a gentleman and his son, young child, the kid was 7 or 8 years old, and it was out of Missouri, and they had been bluff charged by a brownish, reddish Sasquatch that they thought was pregnant because it had a very protruding belly.
Okay.
Yeah, which is very interesting. They got out of there, and the kid said, "Yeah, this big monkey ran at us," basically. So, very, very interesting. Yeah, I mean, so it's not unheard of, and I had to, I did a lot with the location to see if it was a good location. They were just out fishing one day, and I don't know if they interrupted something or it was a territory or what, because a lot of it and has a lot to do with what they're doing in their activity areas. Sometimes they'll be docile, sometimes they'll get a little aggressive. Territory, they're almost always aggressive, because you're in their home, and home range, of course, is whatever. That's the walk-offs, the road crossings, that kind of stuff. But do you employ any tactics when you go out, or are you?
As far as tactics go, not really. I just like to choose areas where I know there have been reports. I'm not going to make up a set of tactics for something that I don't know, like for sure what it's going to do, right? I'm guessing 90% of the time I go out, they're not even going to be there anyways.
And again, what I have found, and this is because I've done a lot of primate research, is that number one, and I don't mean to get up on a pedestal and preach today, but number one, a primate very rarely attacks a primate of another species. Think about, folks, the gut reaction we get when we see a poached gorilla, or the thought about eating a monkey tonight for dinner. Right? It's just not there. Two is they have a natural curiosity. So if you do something to bring, even sometimes starting a campfire, making a little bit of noise, laughing, whatever, that will bring them in to check out what you're doing. So that's just a little food for thought for you, Justin, because they're going to want to check out.
I agree. Like, a lot of sightings and reports come from people who they're not looking, right? They're just going about their day-to-day activities. They're just recreating in the backcountry. Right. And they come across these creatures, or the creature comes across them. So, I don't know. I feel like just being in the right location is a good start. And no matter what I do, I don't really like to, I don't like to make too much noise and kind of look obnoxious out in the woods. I kind of like to keep to myself and just be more quiet and respectful. But I don't know. Yep. I don't employ any specific tactic.
Okay. Yeah. Just a suggestion, next one time, just try it. Try making a little bit of curious noise. See what happens. Because I'll tell you, it's pretty amazing what happened back in 2011 to me. And, I brought my team back in. We were all out. And think of it, too, like this for our public. And a lot of our public that listens to our show are Bigfoot researchers. Think about it like this. I mean, how many times, if you're noisy and just going about your thing and laughing, I've seen deer walk by that have no thing. But if you're in a stealth mode and you're, obviously quiet, the air of suspicion with the animal kingdom is a lot greater. And these things think. So if you're acting quietly like a hunter, trying not to make noise, they're going to look at you a lot more suspiciously than if they think you're just going about your day. And what I've always learned, too, is you may make noise. That's going to bring the primate in, which is a Sasquatch, but it's going to keep the bear and the other things that don't want contact, that have this unnatural fear sometimes. Think about the boom in the backyard. We all go running, and the dog's running under the table. So we all go running to see what's going on. So that's kind of the premise my team employs a lot. And that year in 2011, we're all by a campfire coming in off our little scout missions, which got very little activity. And we're there for a good half hour, and I go out to my car to get some batteries. I grab a smoke, and there I am shining my light, and I go up one direction, and there is one standing, 8 foot tall, standing next to a utility pole. It was October, so the leaves were dropped, and it's standing there watching our campsite, literally, until it notices me watching.
That's freaky.
Yep, and that's what they'll do. If they hear this noise, it brings them in, because I've always said that we're their television. We're their entertainment, we're their TV. Primates need mind stimulation. So if you can provide that, they're going to come in and check you out. And I don't think they're necessarily aggressive. There's a lot of stories that are out there that, okay, they are, but most cases we've never seen anybody ripped apart. No Bigfoot researcher has ever been ripped apart by a Bigfoot. You know, so
that we know of.
That we know of.
Yeah.
But I you know, there's the Bauman story, which may have been something completely different, but we, you know, it's really a kick when. And the other thing I noticed too is if you tent in a particular area that they're at, and you've made enough noise and whatnot, at nighttime when you go into your tent, they mess with you, absolutely. You know, time and time again, I've seen that happen, and it peaked for a while, and then it just dropped off, and that's unfortunate when it drops off. But just don't mean to get up on a soapbox, but you know, some of the things I just like to put out to the audience that, you know, these are the tactics we employ: is get close to where they are aggressive, and then make a lot of noise and see what happens. And it's kind of funny when things don't. I mean, when it's quiet, that's when you get the rock throwing. And I think it's simply some of their rock throwing is to see if something's there. You know, is there a reaction? Oh, okay, I can move in. If there's not a reaction, if there is a reaction, okay, I need to stay behind. But, you know, it was funny as heck. We had the fire raging, and we were all chuckling and telling jokes, and, you know, typical campfire. There was about 8 of us, and I go tooling out, and there's the big SOB watching us, and I'll never forget that. So,
well, you're more than likely right, because in my first film, in Wild Man, My Search for Sasquatch, in the second part, I was out with 3 other people. They were helping me film everything, and the first night we were just sitting around the campfire, having a good time, talking, laughing, and whatnot. And it was around midnight. Something very, very, very close to the camp. It sounded like a loud crack, like a tree either falling or being pushed over. I don't know, because it was so dark out, but you could hear this loud crack, and it sounded like a tree falling. But it was so close to the camp, and I'm thinking, like, what are the odds we come out here this night
Yeah.
and right by our camp this happens when we're like out here to look for this thing. And it was the next morning when we found like the weird handprints on the car windows. That was another really weird thing that I can't explain.
Yep.
Weird handprints.
We've actually had one hit a car. We heard it, and it was kind of funny. It was a 2012 expedition when we were shooting the Nat Geo special for Paranatural Sasquatch Planet. And we all went in to the camp, and the reason why we knew it was particularly a Sasquatch is because that was my second sighting I had, was the juvenile running across the path on night 1 we were there. I got up to use a tree. There's one running across. Something that night had left a log behind one of the vehicles that wasn't there the night previous. And the second night we all go into bed, and we're all like, I actually kept my recorder going, have that on the recording. Something slapped one of the cars. We heard ba-boom, like something had slapped a hand on. So I have no doubt if there's nobody around a vehicle, the curiosity factor is unbelievable. But I'm sorry, I digress. Go ahead, Justin. I'm sorry.
No, that's pretty amazing. That trip that I was on seemed like I had a feeling that it was a curiosity thing, and they were kind of messing with us the whole time we were there. And it felt like younger ones too, because of the size of the handprints and the footprints we found not too far off in the direction of where the tree fell. It all just kind of matched up. Like the tracks were only about 12 to 13 inches in length.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. That's what it seemed like to me. It seemed like if it was any kind of Sasquatch, it was a juvenile.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of funny. I had gotten that same feeling in 2011 for a while too, because we were getting some weird stuff. We were going down, and we were getting paralleled on both sides of us down the road as we walked down the dirt road. We could hear something moving to the left of us and to the right of us, and they would stop when we got close to the camp, and I would go in, And I would turn around, and it was kind of funny because my son is a fish and wildlife. Well, now he's graduated, but he was a fish and wildlife management major. And I said, "You and your buddy go take a walk down. Tell me what happens." And it happened. It happened to two groups that went down. That something would follow them and follow them back, and they would drop off just before they got to camp. So it's unless you've experienced it, it sounds wild. And people know me. I have a penchant for really being critical and skeptical. I couldn't explain this. Could not. Nobody could. And if somebody had a great explanation for what was going on those nights, I would have said fine. But I know what I saw. And but yeah, I mean that is awesome that you've had that experience. So now you understand my mentality of tactics. It's not really a tactic. It's just act natural. Act like you're on a camping trip, and it works. It works. But you just got to know where to place yourself. And it sounds like you've done your due diligence to place yourself in the right places. So,
well, that location was really close to this specific mountain I was told about, where this cave is full of bones, where these things are supposed to be hanging out. It's really close to there. Probably. You could walk there in a day easily.
And
awesome.
Justin, did you say you're planning a trip into the try to locate the cave with the bones this summer?
That's my plan. Yeah, that's my number one plan.
Oh, that is awesome.
Obviously, a lot of the bones are probably, if there is bones, they're probably going to just be from other animals, right?
Right. Yeah. But are you going to update us on your YouTube channel?
Oh yeah.
With videos?
Yeah, everything will be on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll be watching.
And next month I'm going down to Mission, BC to check out that area where that footage was shot. And I'm actually working on another documentary film with another gentleman out there. So that'll be an interesting trip. I'm looking forward to heading out there and maybe seeing something similar to that. Hopefully.
That would be great.
Yeah,
I think I've seen that video, but man, I tell you what, they all kind of run together after several years of looking at these videos. But I think I've not seen Thinker Thunker's version of it yet, where he breaks it down. But I know he does a pretty good job on most of the videos, because I might not agree with everything he says, but he does a pretty good job of zooming in and stuff like that. I might have to check that out.
Did you guys see the video clip of the Sasquatch he's in this tree line, and he throws a large, section of a tree, I guess you could call it. It's not really a branch. It seems to be part of a tree trunk. Did you guys see that video recently?
I have not.
Not a recent one, no. That sounds familiar, but...
check it. It's on Thinker Thunker's page. He goes over it, but that location is actually only about a couple hours west of where I am right now. And that's going to be another investigation site. And we're probably... I'm guessing the log is still there, so we'll be able to find it and kind of determine how big it was, how heavy it was, and if any humans could, do that.
I'm actually...
Digger's in the chat.
Hey, yeah, Digger showed up. Better late than never. We are, believe it or not, it is 10:23, Mr. Bennett.
Oh, man. So, time has flown.
Sure has. So, Justin, where can we find your stuff?
You can find it on YouTube. Mountain Beast Mysteries.
Yep, just Google it, folks. It's pretty easy. Follow the
Mountain Beast.
All right. Mountain Beast Mysteries. Some good stuff. Like I said, I just look forward to your future endeavors. It's a lot of fun to watch. And if you have any advice to people that are in research or just general people, throw it out there now. And I hate putting people on the spot, but that's what the show's about sometimes. So,
Well, I would say keep an open mind, but not too open. You know, you got to keep a little bit of skepticism, and just be smart about it. Don't believe everything you hear, but be open to the possibilities.
All right. Good deal.
Well said. Well said.
Good advice.
Yes. Yep. I am just so excited for seeing some new blood in the field, and obviously Canada, that whole Nordegg area is really cool, and man, you're lucky, Justin. You're on your way. You're doing good.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
And so, Chris, any follow-up questions? Any final things you want to say to Justin before we cut out here in a couple of minutes?
I think, I got some of my questions in, but I didn't get them all, but that's okay. We'll do that on another show. I just want to thank Justin for joining us and being such a great guest tonight, and thank all the listeners and everybody in the chat for joining us. And thank you, Steve.
Oh, yeah, for what? No. So, Justin, thanks for coming on tonight. It's been a pleasure, and it's been our honor to have you on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Good show, brother.
Yeah.
All right, so next week, folks, I just want to do a couple of program updates. First of all, this week on Extreme Paranormal Radio, it's going to be on the 17th, where the ladies are going to have on Mike Dolan and Brian McCauley from the Demon Files. That was a show that was run on Destination America. I don't know if anybody remembers that. They'll be doing that this Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Us, next week, we're going to have on our good friend, second time on the show. He was on a couple of years ago, I think, when we were for our hiatus. We're going to have on Jay Pachochin from Wisconsin.
Jay, yeah.
We heard last week a little bit about Seth Breedlove talking about Jay and the Dogman mysteries, because Jay doesn't just do Bigfoot. He does anything and everything paranormal cryptid in Wisconsin and the place called The Kettle. So I'm looking really forward to that. It's Mother's Day, so I think we got about a minute and a half left. So, Chris, I just want to wish, before we go, I want to wish every mother out there a happy Mother's Day. And I won't wish you a happy Mother's Day. Nobody says anything bad about Chris Bennett.
Oh, thanks, Steve. I appreciate it. Back at you, brother. And wait a minute. Before we go, hey man, I want you to get out that Kickstarter address for that documentary you're working on.
Yes, thank you, sir. If you just go on to Indiegogo, Indiegogo.com, INDIE go.com. Just Google, just search in the thing Bigfoot Cold Case. Should pop up, because they don't give a link. They give a link with all sorts of numbers on it. So just go over there, take a look for our crowdfunding campaign for Bigfoot Cold Case. We're going to be shooting in August, so we're just a couple of months away from that. 2.5 months away from that. You can pre-order a DVD for $25, and that is an autographed DVD by yours truly. And that's the easiest way to help. You get something for contributing. There are other levels, but at the very least, if you want to pre-order one, please pre-order one. We're going to have that released by April of 2019. Bigfoot Cold Case, looking back into a 42-plus year mystery, which could either be a total fantasy story, or it could eventually reveal the remains of a Sasquatch. So we shall see as we unroll that documentary. And again, it's one of those ones that's really not planned. We have some direction. We have some things we're going to do, but where it's going to lead us towards the end, I do not know. So I'm on the journey, as are the rest of you if you get this DVD. So. But on behalf of me and Chris, we want to wish everybody a happy and safe week. keep healthy, and of course, God bless, and keep on squatching, folks. We'll catch you all next week, 9 p.m. Eastern, here on blogtalkradio.com/Squatchdetective or Squatchdetectiveradio.com. Catch you all next week, folks.
Thank you for listening to Squatch Detective Radio. Join us each week on Blog Talk Radio, Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern, as your hosts, veteran Bigfoot researchers, Steve Culls and Chris Bennett, bring you guests from around North America, exploring the mystery of the beast known as Bigfoot.